I know. Some of you want me to be successful on YouTube, and you're like, Eddie, why are you talking about operating margin and a lot of fundamental analysis measures? You should be talking about meme stocks, and you should be posting all these catchy clickbait cover photos. But honestly, I love to geek out over some earnings figures. I love to follow the fundamentals and the technicals and take a deep dive when I'm doing due diligence. And one of the profitability measures that I think is deeply misunderstood, if not just completely ignored altogether, is operating margin. What is operating margin? So first, let's understand what operating income is, because it's part of the way that we calculate operating margin. Operating income is simply gross income, which is the total revenue minus total cost of goods sold. That's your gross income, minus operating expenses, or some of those indirect costs. And some of those include selling, general, and administrative costs, as well as sales and marketing, research and development, depreciation, and amortization. And now I know your eyes are glazing over and you're like, wait, what? Depreciation, amortization, what is that? Depreciation is basically a reduction in value of an asset over time due to wear and tear. Think of like a car. Once you take it off the lot, you start driving it, you start wiping your nose, putting it on the seats, you eat some McDonald's, you spill some stuff, the value goes down. The more miles that are on the car depreciates in value. That's depreciation. And amortization, that has to do with the paying off of loans. Okay, so cool story, bro. That's great. We just covered operating income, but in this video, we're trying to cover operating margin. So the whole point of it was to show you what goes in the numerator. In order to get operating margin, you are taking operating income, which we just discussed, and you're dividing that by total sales, or more commonly known as revenue. So in short, operating margin, it takes into account some indirect costs. And what does it tell us? Well, it tells us a company's ability to manage those costs. And it's always good to track operating margin over time. It's good to compare other companies that are in the same sector. Remember, compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. And it's just a really, really good metric because it could also tell you how a company is investing in areas it expects will enhance its business brand and growth. And is it paying off? Often companies can have a really high profit margin, but lower operating margin. And so again, it's important to track this over time. Also, you can look at how operating margin relates to profit margin and take a look at that difference and track that over time. And that can give you some really, really key helpful information. Now, one of the things that I want to cover is how exactly do we calculate operating margin? And I'm going to show you looking at the Yahoo Finance resource. I'm going to calculate it with you guys. I know it's a boring video, but once you know this, you'll understand it. And this way, when you're listening in on those earnings calls after an earnings release, you're going to have a better understanding of what the heck they're talking about, because they do cover operating margin, profit margin, and other measures that I plan to cover in other videos. All right, guys, so let's quickly figure this out. So if you navigate over to Yahoo Finance and you search for the ticker symbol for Apple, which is AAPL, you will see that the profitability values, there's profit margin, which says 26.58%, but there's also something called operating margin trailing 12 months, which is 30.9%. So how can you find this figure and calculate it using the income statement? I'll show you that right here. So if you navigate to any income statement, you'll see that the first thing that's calculated is gross profit. And over here, we could see Apple's gross profit for trailing 12 months is this. How's it calculated? Well, it's very simple. You take the total revenue and you take the cost of that revenue, also known as expenses, and you subtract it from total revenue and you get this number here. But now we want to come up with operating income. How do we get operating income? Well, we take the gross profit and we subtract operating expenses from it. And as you can see here, selling, general, and administrative costs, as well as research and development, which I covered before. So if you subtract that from the gross profit, then you get your true operating income. And so once you figure it out, the operating income is $116,903,000,000. Remember, this is in thousands. So once you take that operating income, you go ahead and you divide operating income by the total revenue, which is 378,323,000,000, and that will give you operating margin. Operating margin is the fraction of operating income divided by total revenue. So let's now try it on a calculator to see if I'm correct or if I'm talking straight dribble. So we go right here, 116,903. I'm not going to bother with all the zeros because it's a fraction. They'll cancel out anyways. So we take that operating income number, we divide it by total revenue, which is 378,323, and we get this number here. Let's multiply it by 100 so that we get a percentage, 30.90%. Under profitability right here, you can see operating margin, TTM, which is trailing 12 months, 30.90%. And this is how you can calculate operating margin whenever you damn well please. I appreciate you guys watching this video in its entirety. I know it's not the sexiest topic, but it is something that's very important if you're into due diligence, fundamental analysis. If you're trying to take more control of your financial life, you have to understand these types of terms and how they fit in. And when you're listening to that next earnings call, hopefully you understand what the heck they're talking about. So let me know in the comments if this helped you out. Let me know which options trading strategy, which crypto, which stock you want me to cover next, and I'll see you guys in the next video.